Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 24-51 Reunion with Kai Yutong and Xuanhuan. 24th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The next day. After breakfast, Li Wei secluded himself in his room to count the silver he'd looted and received from the Chenggalan gang. It filled an entire chest. Zhao Meng had been practicing the breathing technique continuously since the previous night. Every time, his junior brother had been forced to fight and kill, while he, as the senior brother, could only hide behind. Master had tasked him with protecting his junior brother, but now it was the other way around. He knew he had to work twice as hard. More importantly, the current peace was only temporary, not stable. He had to become stronger to minimize the risk of exposing his true abilities. So 100,000 silver coins is this much. I should probably exchange it all for Yongquan coins. 1,000 Yongquan coins would be much easier to carry and conceal. As Li Wei was thinking this, Lao Lu's voice came from outside. Young Master Li, come out quickly. Someone's here to visit. I can't understand what they're saying. Li Wei closed the chest, stored it in the evil camel bell, and opened the door to the front courtyard. Lao Lu and Lao Guan were repairing the courtyard wall. Outside the gate stood a well-dressed noblewoman in her 50s, accompanied by 3 young, beautiful women. The 3 young women, all only 16 or 17 years old, wore elegant silk skirts. One had a serene and gentle air, another bright, lively eyes, and the third shyly hid her face behind a fan. After some questioning, Li Wei learned they were the madam of the moon-embracing pavilion next door and her 3 most popular daughters. They had come to offer a housewarming gift and hoped for his future patronage. Li Wei didn't press for details about what this patronage entailed, whether it meant boosting their business or offering assistance if they encountered trouble at the moon-embracing pavilion. He had initially intended to decline their offer, but the 3 daughters left with the madam after dropping off their gift, without lingering. Once they had walked a few dozen steps, they dropped their pretense of decorum and began chattering amongst themselves. I was actually a bit scared to come visit him today after seeing him kill someone in the street last night. But he blushed just now. He looked so flustered, it was hilarious. He's just skilled. And he was killing bad guys from the Chenggalan gang. I never would have guessed he was so young. He's actually quite handsome, too. Too bad he doesn't have a pure immortal physique. Do you think he's never been with a woman before? He looks like a total virgin. Li Wei had heard all the women's chatter. He forced a wry smile, feeling a surge of helplessness. If he had a choice, he wouldn't have killed anyone. The feeling wasn't pleasant. Lao Lu and Lao Guan watched the graceful figures of the moon-embracing pavilion women disappear, then sidled up to Li Wei, their eyes gleaming. Lao Lu sighed admiringly. The quality of brothels in this world is truly high. Not a hint of vulgarity or cheap makeup. Brother Li, you made quite a splash last night, practically making a name for yourself in this city district. Did they say you could visit for free? If you two want to indulge, you can apply to me for silver. But don't mention my name or try to run up a tab or dine and dash. I can't afford to be embarrassed like that, Li Wei joked. Everyone has desires, he understood that. In this world, with no roots or connections, he had to be ruthless toward his enemies. But toward his friends and companions, he was utterly sincere. Since Lao Lu and Lao Guan had been helping him with the hard work and heavy lifting all along, he would never abandon them. Haha, Brother Li, you're truly noble. Qin Kai, washing bloodstains in the distance, snorted disdainfully, clearly displeased with the 3 men's boisterous laughter. The sound of carriage wheels approached, stopping outside the mansion gates. The 3 men immediately stopped laughing and turned to look. The driver was none other than an old acquaintance, Li Qi, the old servant who had always followed Kang Li. Li Qi set down his whip and alighted first, his gaze fixed on Li Wei. Gone was the earlier contempt, instead, a hint of respect flickered in his eyes. Li Ling, clad in a white silk gauze dress that resembled a blooming crabapple flower, parted the carriage curtains. Her peerless beauty rivaled that of a pure immortal physique woman. Her skin glowed like jade, her slender waist was cinched with a jade belt, her ornaments were exquisite, and her ruby lips glistened like precious gems. After stepping out, she walked toward Li Wei with a smile, stopping just 1 step away. Her almond eyes scanned him from head to toe, her voice soft and concerned. How are you, you brute? Are you injured? Li Wei inhaled her delicate fragrance, finding it impossible to maintain his guard against such a woman. He shook his head with a smile. Just a few minor scratches. Li Ling was skeptical. She pinched his arm and thumped his chest, confirming his solid build. Only after confirming his injuries were truly minor did she relax, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. How did you do it? I heard the Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators and insect tamers were mobilized, and the Changeling gang's gang leader and vice gang leader are both in the Five Seas realm. What you heard was definitely exaggerated. Li Wei replied, Old Zhao invoked the young clan leader's name, which is why the Changeling gang backed down. I'm not nearly that capable. Kong Xiaoman of the City Defense Guard did indeed come to see my brother last night, Li Ling admitted, still half convinced. Never mind. You're too good at hiding things. I won't pry. But these gifts on the ground. The heavy scent of rouge and powder suggests they came from multiple women. Where did these temptresses come from? Li Wei glanced at the moon-embracing pavilion across the street. Li Ling's eyes flashed with annoyance. Li Qi, send someone to raise that brothel to the ground. Li Qi wore a pained expression. That's Yang clan property. Isn't that perfect? Yang Qingxi came to my brother this morning to apologize and plead for the Changeling gang. That brothel is the price she'll pay, Li Ling declared. Li Wei quickly interjected, Fourth Miss Li, please don't make things difficult for those women. They're all just unfortunate souls. Why not just wipe out the Changeling gang instead? Li Ling immediately called out, Gao Huan, Yutong, come see your companion. He's getting cozy with a bunch of courtesans. Did he always act like this? The carriages parked outside weren't just one, but an entire convoy. Gao Huan and Kai Yutong entered the mansion gate one after another, followed by a large group of servants and maids from the Kandli tribe. Seeing them, Li Wei's spirits lifted. He embraced Gao Huan warmly. Qin Kai joined the group, wiping away tears, deeply moved by the unexpected reunion in a foreign land. Kai Yutong wore a white veil and the elaborate dress of this world. Even without seeing her peerless beauty, her tall, graceful figure and cold, ethereal aura made her seem like a celestial being descended to earth. Normally indifferent to everything, her eyes now glistened with tears as she held Qin Kai's hand, sharing their recent experiences. You seem to have already learned the language of this world. Li Wei asked, surprised. He couldn't understand how they could communicate with Li Ling so easily and why their relationship seemed so close. Gao Huan replied, Fourth Miss activated our language wisdom. After just a day or two, communication became effortless. Li Wei glanced at Li Ling, surprised to discover she possessed such skill. He immediately wanted to ask her to awaken language wisdom for Lao Lu, Lao Guan, and Qin Kai. In the past, he would never have naturally considered such a request. The thought was too dangerous. It meant that on a subconscious level, he had already begun to accept Li Ling's kindness, even growing accustomed to it. Li Ling said, for a Nether Lantern guide, awakening language wisdom is a trivial matter. Do you know why I only came to see you today? Because I've been busy breaking through to the next realm these past few days. Now, I'm a spiritual mind master in the Earth-Fire realm. I can even hold my own against weaker martial mystic cultivators in the Five Seas realm. Zhao Meng, hearing the commotion, crawled out of the main building, his face lighting up at the sight of Gao Huan and Kai Yutong. First mate. You're so tall. Can you spare me a little? Gao Huan walked over, his head barely reaching Zhao Meng's knee. Zhao Meng said, everyone has their own path, and everyone has their own flaws. It's just the way things are. Dr. Kai, why are you and Gao Huan alone? Where's Dr. Qi? Li Wei had been wondering the same thing. Where is Zhenhai Guanwu? Kai Yutong replied, she has important matters to attend to right now. She probably doesn't have time to see her old friends. Li Wei didn't care what important matters Zhenhai Guanwu was busy with. As long as his cultivation continued to advance rapidly, he wasn't afraid of her coming back. After all, senior sister Kai had returned safely, that was what mattered most. Li Ling said, my brother heard about what happened last night and wanted to come himself, but Yang Qingxi stopped him. He had more pressing matters to attend to and might be delayed in seeing you. However, my fourth uncle came with me. Suddenly, Li Wei heard Li Ling's voice in his ear, my fourth uncle is the Kandli tribe's top expert of this 60-year cycle, also known as the Kandli first commander. Is that enough respect for you? Don't be rude. Li Ling was standing several steps away, yet her voice sounded like a close whisper, unheard by anyone else, a truly strange phenomenon. Fourth girl, what are you whispering about? Kandli first commander Li Songolin, though 52 years old, looked to be in his early 30s, perhaps due to his abundant spiritual power. Dressed in a simple green robe and gray-soled cloth shoes, he resembled a down-and-out scholar, exuding no aura of authority. Instead, he radiated an air of natural ease and relaxation. Li Wei had expected some reaction from the Kandli tribe, but he hadn't anticipated such a prominent figure. He immediately stepped forward and bowed. Greetings, Kandli first commander. The others in the courtyard followed suit, bowing in respect. No need for formalities, let's keep things casual. Li Songolin's gaze fell on Li Wei. After a careful examination, he said, young man, can we have a private chat? Without entering the house, Li Songolin sat on a stone bench beneath an old poplar tree. He released a cloud of spiritual chi to envelop them, preventing anyone from eavesdropping on their conversation. Seeing Li Wei still standing, he gestured for him to sit down. Fourth girl told me about the battle at Burial Immortal Town. The Kandli tribe owes you a great debt for your help there. Later, also at Burial Immortal Town, you saved her and helped expose the Earth Wolf King's army's conspiracy. I understand your fear of retaliation from the Earth Wolf King's army and your reluctance to get involved with us. I shouldn't have disturbed your peace. But last night, you invoked the Kandli name and used the Kandli tribe's identity. I believe we can now interact normally. After all, even if you wanted to avoid trouble, you're already bound to us. So, what are your plans? Would you consider entering in the Zhu Li Dao Academy for cultivation? Blank. End of chapter. Novel, The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Zhu Li Insect Valley. Chapter 25-52, The First Commander of Kang Li. 25th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Warm, gentle sunlight filtered through the tender green leaves of the poplars, casting dappled shadows on the ground. Li Wei sat on a stone bench opposite Li Songolin, not daring to act presumptuous. He asked humbly, Senior, haven't all the spots at the Zhu Li Dao Academy already been filled? Li Songolin smiled and explained slowly, the Zhu Li Dao Academy is the highest martial arts institution of the Zhu Li clan. It only accepts the most talented young disciples from each tribe, with a maximum age limit of 20 upon entry. The older you are, the higher the bar to clear. Although Gao Huan is over the age limit, he's small in stature and has just undergone his pure immortal physique transformation. His old skin has shed, leaving him looking completely renewed. No one can tell he's actually older. Kang Li reported his age as 16. In previous years, each tribe had 20 spots, totaling 180 disciples. More than half of these were selected early on from the tribal academies of the 9 great tribes. This year, it's the Mangshan Grand Festival, held every 4 years. Each tribe has been granted an additional 10 spots. In other words, the Kandli tribe has 30 spots this year, and all the major families are vying for them. He narrowed his eyes, their inner light hidden, and stared at Li Wei. I can help you secure a chance to challenge for a spot. If you're strong enough, why not take one? Everyone will have to accept it. To take down 2 Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators and an insect tamer on your own. I think you'll have no problem getting into the Zhu Li Dao Academy. To be frank, I came here for 2 reasons. First, to express my gratitude. Second, your strength is already enough to warrant the Kandli tribe's attention. How many springs have you opened? 7 springs, Li Wei replied, figuring that since Li Songolin had asked, he wouldn't try to probe. With his current cultivation at 5 springs, he could indeed hold his own against 7 springs martial mystic cultivators without using spiritual artifacts. Li Songolin's expression tightened, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Last night must have been incredibly dangerous. Fortunately, you had your spiritual artifact. A 19-year-old at 7 springs is a completely different concept than a 50-year-old at the same level. Considering your age and current cultivation, your talent has a chance to rank in the middle tier among this year's 30 candidates. Join the Dao Academy. That's where you'll have the best chance of breaking through to the 8th spring, the Fengfu Wind Palace. It will also make it easier to reach the 5 Seas realm in the future. You should know that in Zhu Li City, the suburban domain, city domain, and Dao domain represent 3 distinct cultivation environments. The Zhu Li Dao Academy is located in the heart of the Dao domain. Those who gain admission to the academy are destined to become influential figures within their tribes. Li Wei could sense Li Songolin's sincerity, but he carried too many secrets. Entering the Zhu Li Dao Academy would mean complete exposure, and whether that would be a blessing or a curse remained uncertain. After all, the academy belonged to the 9 great tribes, not just the Kandli tribe. He decided to consult Senior Coffin first. Thank you for your consideration, First Commander, Li Wei said, but I'd like to think it over. Li Songolin, understanding the young man's cautious nature, didn't press him, no rush. Come see me anytime you've made up your mind. Or find 4th girl. She knows how to reach me. Keep cultivating diligently. Break through to the 5 Seas realm within 5 years, and I'll speak to my second brother about your relationship with her. I have no prejudice against social status, and besides, I still owe you a life-saving debt. Given Li Songolin's status and position, he wouldn't make a promise lightly. Once he did, it was as good as set in stone. Li Wei forced a smile. What exactly did she say to you? Don't call me senior. Just call me 4th uncle, Li Songolin said. There's no way I can talk to him anymore. Li Songolin retracted the spiritual chi cloud into his body and stood up. As for the Changolin gang, don't worry. I'll go pay them a visit myself later. But the Yang clan and the Kandli tribe have been allies for generations, and Yang Qingxi has already come to apologize in person. I can't be too harsh on them. I can only issue a warning. Thank you, 4th uncle. Li Wei accepted the favor. After the Changolin gang suffered such a heavy loss last night, they wouldn't let it go easily. It was like a sword constantly hanging over his head. With Li Songgolan's personal intervention, even if he didn't say a single harsh word, would ensure the Changgolan gang wouldn't dare to cause trouble again, at least openly. Why are you calling him fourth uncle too? Li Ling sneered. Li Wei couldn't be bothered to respond. Li Songgolan suddenly remembered something. By the way, are you planning to stay here or move to the city domain? The city domain has denser law energy, but the Kandli tribe has many powerful families within it, and they're all entangled in countless messy affairs. Also, there are external rivals. In the past decade or so, the influx of powerful figures into Li province due to the wars outside has been overwhelming. Zhu City is no longer the Zhu city of the Zhu clan. Moving into the city without joining the Dao Academy will stir up quite a storm. Weigh the pros and cons carefully. Fourth girl, I'll leave this matter to you. Make sure they're settled in. I'll go check on the Changgolan gang first. Li Songgolan walked out of the courtyard gate, waved to the coachman who had driven up, and strolled away alone, as if he were lazily window shopping. After watching Li Songgolan leave, Li Ling said, "That's just how my fourth uncle is. Except for martial arts cultivation, he finds everything else troublesome. Actually, living in the city is quite nice. Even if you can't get into the Zhu Dao Academy, you can still attend the Kandli Tribe Academy. Uncle Qi, where's the gift I prepared for senior brother?" Li Qi entered the courtyard, carrying a massive wooden chest in his arms. Behind him followed a middle-aged male and female servant, each holding a tailor's measuring tape. The chest opened to reveal a folded, oversized robe. Li Ling enthusiastically fussed over the arrangements, knowing senior brother's physique is extraordinary and that you've never had proper clothes. I had these made overnight. They probably won't fit perfectly, but I've brought the tailors with me. They can take your measurements properly, and I'll have several more sets made later, all on my account. Zhao Meng glanced at Li Wei. Li Wei sighed inwardly. Here it comes again. And there was no way to refuse. He worried about Li Ling's inexplicable enthusiasm, her groundless kindness toward him and those around him. Details he hadn't even considered, Li Ling remembered and took care of. Fourth miss, your kindness is deeply appreciated by us brothers, Li Wei said. Li Ling beamed. Finally, a warm word. I'll have 2 sets made for you as well later. Kai Yutong recalled the first time she'd seen Li Ling in the Death Mist domain. Back then, Li Ling had been a mysterious and cold netherlight guide. Nothing like the radiant, girlish spirit she showed now. Kai Yutong asked, how did you two become so close? It's a long story, Li Wei said with a wry smile, unsure where to begin. He changed the subject, Qi Shanshan. That white bone demon. What exactly is she up to? Hard to say. Kai Yutong said, I suspect she's deeply infatuated with the young clan leader. She's probably aiming to become his wife. Li Wei was stunned, thinking he'd misheard. This was Chanhai Guanwu, the most powerful being on this land 1,000 years ago. Could she truly have fallen for a young man? And she was even making the first move. He had to admit Kang Li was extraordinary. With his noble lineage, flawless pure immortal physique, once in a millennium talent, and generous nature, there was hardly a flaw to be found. Any woman in the world would be captivated by him. But this was Chanhai Guanwu. Kai Yutong continued, Qi Shanshan doesn't seem to be possessed. I tested her, and she retains her own independent consciousness. At this stage, the white bone demon appears unable to leave her body and has fallen into a deep slumber. Qi Shanshan herself is currently in control. That makes much more sense. Li Wei's heart stirred. If Chanhai Guanwu was truly dormant, could he seize this opportunity to eliminate her and eliminate the threat once and for all? He had a nagging feeling she would return for him. His blood and soul seemed to hold some special significance to her. Moreover, he desperately wanted to learn the truth about his origins from Chanhai Guanwu. Li Wei had asked the 3 senior remnant souls about this, but they had never heard of the ancient clan she mentioned, nor the concept of a guardian wife. Li Ling walked over with a smile. What secret are you two whispering about? Li Wei, I was just about to talk to you about Yutong. She has a pure immortal physique. Logically, she should be able to enter the Zhu Dao Academy for cultivation. But Xuanhuan is already inside. Adding another untrained pure immortal physique would inevitably arouse suspicion among the other 8 tribes, and that might not be a good thing. I've spoken with her and suggested she study at the Kandli Tribe Academy, but she seems more eager to stay with you. Why don't you try to persuade her? Li Wei chuckled. Of course, I respect her wishes. Li Ling said, are you sure you can protect a pure immortal physique? You've seen the dangers and ruthlessness of Zhu City. Having her by your side will only attract more covetous gazes. Possessing a pure immortal physique is a blessing, but without sufficient strength, it becomes a curse. Li Wei looked at Kai Yutong's peerless beauty, which remained captivating even behind her veil. He fell into deep thought. Senior sister, I think Li Ling has a point. Are you facing any trouble or have any concerns? Kai Yutong spoke with her usual bluntness, like a stubborn old scholar. I don't trust strangers. I only trust you. This simple truth held unparalleled power over any man. Li Ling immediately turned to look at Kai Yutong, her gaze instantly shifting from its previous warmth, as if to say, so there's more to your relationship than meets the eye. Li Wei recalled Kai Yutong feeding him fish soup while he lay in the bronze ship sickbed. A surge of inexplicable passion flooded his head. All right, senior sister, stay. No matter what we face, I'll give everything I have to protect you. His words rang with unwavering conviction, each syllable resonating with unyielding determination. Li Wei's decision to keep Kai Yutong wasn't driven solely by youthful passion. He knew that where people gather, conflict inevitably arises. Li Songolin had made it clear that the Kandli tribe had a complex power structure. Without any cultivation foundation, would senior sister Kai truly be safe entering the Kandli tribe academy alone? A pure immortal physique would be highly valued, but it would also attract envy and covetousness. Li Ling rubbed her fingers together in her sleeve. Why don't you two enter the Kandli tribe academy together? If they were going to join any academy, it would be the Zhu Li Dao Academy. Li Wei had little interest in a tribe's academy. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Zhu Insect Valley. Chapter 26-53 The Inheritor and the Hidden Ones. 26th of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. You probably don't know this, Xuanhuan said, his voice brimming with excitement, but Zhu City is divided into the City Domain and the Dao Domain. The Dao Domain lies within the Heaven Law Earth Spring, where the energy of Heaven, Earth, and Law is countless times more concentrated than it is here. Besides the Zhu Li Dao Academy, there are also the Sui Sect, the Tianyi Sect, the Guanai Pavilion, and the Chen Clan's Sanchin Palace. I, Xuanhuan, possess a pure immortal physique. I've only been cultivating for a little over 10 days, yet I've already opened my first spring. Xuanhuan continued to regale Lao Lu, Lao Guan, and Qin Ke with tales, his enthusiasm soaring. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. I won't lie to you, those 5 Seas realm elders at the Zhu Li Dao Academy are all vying to take me as their disciple. And one after another, they've been introducing their most beautiful granddaughters and nieces, trying to arrange marriages with me. Some have even suggested I could take multiple wives. They don't practice monogamy here. Tell me, isn't it annoying? Extremely, the others chorused. After lunch, Li Ling and Xuanhuan left. Before departing, Li Ling mentioned Yue to Qin Ke and the other two, saying she would be entering the Zhu Li Dao Academy for a period of cultivation. She instructed Li Wei to seek her out there if he needed anything. Kai Yutong stayed behind. She seemed uninterested in people, but upon discovering the room filled with giant spiders, she became intensely interested. In the dimly lit chamber, Li Wei recounted Li Songgolin's words in full to Senior Coffin and Senior Spirit Tablet, seeking their counsel. After all, their understanding of cultivation in the Zhu Li clan far surpassed his own. The remnant corpse in the stone coffin pondered for a moment before saying, in the past, entering the Zhu Li Dao Academy would have been an excellent path. But from what your companion said, there are now so many sects and factions within the Dao domain. This indicates the Zhu Li clan's decline has been severe. You must understand, the Dao domain of Zhu Li City is at the very heart of the Zhu Li clan's core area. It used to be solely occupied by the Zhu Li Dao Academy. Yet now, even this core area has been carved up into several major pieces. Li Wei sensed a profound sense of loss and anger emanating from Senior Coffin. The clan chiefs of the Zhu Li clan in recent generations have been utter scoundrels. Senior Spirit Tablet roared. Senior Coffin said, Wei Yi, your constitution and cultivation speed are extraordinary. You have too many secrets. Entering the Zhu Li Dao Academy without the backing of a sufficiently powerful force would make you too conspicuous, inevitably drawing disaster. Such backing must be based on blood ties. Take Kang Li, for example. He likely has the entire Zhu Li clan behind him, not just the Kandli tribe. He's clearly being groomed as the next generation's top inheritor, destined to represent the Zhu Li clan throughout the world and shoulder the responsibility of revitalizing the clan. Someone like him is untouchable. Anyone who dares harm him must carefully consider the consequences. Killing him would incur the wrath of the entire Zhu Li clan. Do you think the Zhu Li clan would unite in vengeance for you if someone killed you? Even if it were just the Kandli tribe, how far would they go to support you? Would they risk their entire tribe to stand by you? Setting aside everything else, if word got out that you opened 5 springs in just 1 month, that alone would be enough to make someone in the 5 Seas realm kill you. Li Wei's emotions were complex. It seems entering the Zhu Li Dao Academy would indeed do me more harm than good. I have another path for you. It's riskier, but it might be a better choice in your situation. Senior Coffin continued, in the Lingxiao realm, the most powerful factions cultivate each generation's successors, sometimes one, sometimes several. Without exception, these successors possess pure immortal physiques, have opened the 9 springs, and boast unparalleled talent and appearance. They travel the world, observing the myriad aspects of mortal life and witnessing the dangers of various professions. While honing their skills, they also serve as living advertisements for their sects and clans, attracting countless talents to follow and join. Naturally, the sects and clans flourish in turn. Therefore, these successors typically become sect masters or clan leaders in the future. Li Wei chuckled, the allure of an idol certainly can inspire fanaticism. Senior Coffin replied, but a truly super powerful faction that aims to endure for thousands or even tens of thousands of years can't rely solely on its public image. While cultivating a facade is essential, nurturing its core is even more crucial. The successors represent the facade, while the core is known as the hidden ones. Hidden ones receive even better resources than successors, but the competition for this position is far more brutal. You can probably guess that I had ties to the Zhu Li clan in my past life. I admit there's a degree of personal bias in guiding you down this path. But the path of the hidden ones offers you access to the Zhu Li clan's cultivation resources and their protection, with minimal constraints. I suggest you give it serious consideration. Li Wei asked, what do you mean by brutal, senior? The competition is very brutal, Senior Coffin replied. Each year, the 9 great tribes send one or several youths to the Zhu Li hidden sect Yinmen. But only one survives each year. Whether that survivor becomes a hidden one is uncertain, they're more likely to become a servant of hidden ones. A hidden one is chosen only once every decade. Li Wei chuckled. Senior. Aren't you setting me up? Senior Coffin said, hear me out. Since I've prepared this path for you, I've also devised a foolproof plan. Before entering the Zhu Li hidden sect Yinmen, you must first break through the 9th spring. With your current combat strength at the 9th spring stage, you won't even need to compete to conquer the hidden sects. Well, let's call them humans, for now. After that, consuming the hidden sect's 5 Cs pill will propel you directly into the 5 Cs realm. Besides breaking the 9 springs to become a hidden one, there's a second method, but it carries some risk. You'd have to visit the tomb of the Azure King. Currently, we have ample time, and your cultivation speed is sufficient, so there's no need to take that risk. At this moment, Senior Spirit Tablet spoke, the situation is more complex than we anticipated. It seems the Zhu Li clan is facing problems both internally and externally. I believe you should join the hidden sect as soon as possible. The cultivation environment there is even better than in the Dao domain, which will accelerate your progress. On the path of cultivation, what's life without risks? Li Wei interjected, wait a moment. To become a hidden one of the Zhu Li clan, wouldn't it require not only strength but also their absolute trust? Don't worry about that. Since Senior Coffin arranged this path for you, he'll naturally handle that aspect, Senior Spirit Tablet Senior Longwei replied. That's right. Focus on your cultivation for now. Senior Spirit Tablet and I will discuss which method to choose. Senior Coffin suddenly remembered something and added, the current group of us is too weak. We need to cultivate enough powerful guardians. What do you think of Zhao Zhizhuo? Li Wei chuckled, we're on the same page. But the consequences of revealing a top-tier spiritual artifact are something I can't afford to deal with right now. Aren't you being overly cautious? Even if Zhao Zhizhuo recovers his cultivation, no one would suspect a Spring Surge Realm cultivator like you. Senior Coffin said, here's what we'll do. Leave him to me. I'll help him recover his cultivation while also pretending to be a powerful cultivator to intimidate him slightly. Of course, it depends on whether you're willing to spend the money. This was going to cost a fortune. Li Wei's face twisted in pain. I just made 2 fortunes. How much is this going to cost? Besides the Changgulan gang's 100,000 silver coins, Li Ling had also brought the Kandli tribe's payment for the house today. Think about how much it costs those sects to cultivate a 5 Cs realm cultivator, Senior Coffin said with a rare chuckle, that might make you feel a little better. Li Wei stepped out of the room and looked at the large family gathered before him. His sense of security was severely lacking. He decided to prioritize Zhao Zhizhuo's cultivation recovery plan. Only with a true 5 Cs realm expert guarding them would he feel truly safe, whether he was venturing into the tomb of the Azure King or entering seclusion to break through to the 6th spring. The next day, Li Wei and Zhao Zhizhuo drove a newly purchased carriage toward the city gates. Zhao Zhizhuo still bore many scars, but they were no longer serious and he could move freely. Upon entering the city, magnificent grand, imposing buildings came into view. Luxurious carriages filled the streets, and fearsome exotic beasts and disciples of various sects in uniform attire were a common sight. Let's go to the West Market, Li Wei said. Zhao Zhizhuo was a skilled driver, pulling on the reins, cracking his whip, and turning the carriage west. Li Wei asked, I heard that to reshape a broken spring, you need to buy spring liquid. It must be quite expensive, right? Zhao Zhizhuo knew spring liquid well. Spring liquid is the essence condensed from the spring eyes of Dao Seed Realm experts. They wouldn't sell it unless they are utterly destitute. In the market, a single drop of spring liquid costs 1,000 silver coins. Li Wei clutched his chest and asked again, how many drops do you need to reshape a broken spring? I used 3 drops to reshape my first spring and 5 drops for my second spring, Zhao Zhizhuo replied. Li Wei asked, Old Zhao, how many springs did you open back then? 8 springs. Zhao Zhizhuo's face lit up with pride as he recalled the past. He continued, you should know that for a martial mystic cultivator to break through to the 8th spring is considered a true hero, even more difficult than reaching the 5 seas realm. Let me put it this way, out of 27 springs martial mystic cultivators, perhaps only one will break through to the 8th spring. But out of 7 springs martial mystic cultivators, one will likely reach the 5 seas realm. Of course, these numbers aren't exact, just an example. Old Zhao, do you trust me? Li Wei asked. Zhao Zhizhuo wasn't a fool. He immediately grew tense. Brother Li, are you thinking of buying me spring liquid? There's no need to waste your money. I've already wasted countless silver coins on it in the past, to no avail. I've tried every method imaginable, and after years of effort, I've only managed to reconstruct my second spring. My heart has long since found peace. You've resigned yourself to fate. You're content with this. But I heard you once opened all 5 chi seas in the 5 seas realm, and your cultivation was quite advanced. Li Wei said, if you trust me, don't ask any questions. We'll buy the spring liquid, and I'll take you to meet a senior who can help you. Zhao Zhizhuo knew Li Wei's character well enough to know he wouldn't speak without reason. His entire mood ignited instantly, his heart surging with tidal waves of emotion. He stared fixedly at Li Wei, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Drive the carriage, watch the road. Sit back down. Can't you be a little more composed? Li Wei said. Zhao Zhizhuo was far from composed. He was on the verge of tears, his voice trembling with urgency as he asked, which senior is it? Only a handful of spiritual artifacts in the entire Lingxiao realm can help reshape a broken spring, there are less than 10, I think. Li province doesn't seem to have any. I told you not to ask. If you ask again, we're turning back right now. That senior hates talkative people the most, Li Wei said. I won't ask. I won't ask anymore. After saying this, Zhao Zhizhuo added, is that senior really is in Zhuli City? Alright, I won't ask. I'll drive the carriage, I'll drive it carefully. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2. Zhuli Insect Valley. Chapter 2754 The Top 100 Martial Mystic Cultivators. 27th of Volume 2. Translator. Shadow Knight AK. Editor. Shadow Knight AK. The West Market of Zhuli City was a hub of unparalleled prosperity. Not only did major powers from Li province establish their headquarters there, but the signboards lining the streets often displayed the names of strong ancient myriad clans and sects from the other 6 provinces of the Southern Territory. The Kangli tribe, for instance, is also an ancient myriad clan. An ancient clan could directly influence 1 million people. Of course, not all of the Zhuli tribes had earned the title of ancient myriad clan. In truth, the Zhuli tribes had long since declined. However, because they had rarely involved themselves in worldly affairs for a century, their true strength remained unknown. This allowed them to barely maintain the dignity of the Lingxiao realm's sole ancient myriad clan. Like the other ancient myriad clans such as Zuaoqiu and Longmen Dragon sect, they are revered by cultivators across the realm. Li province in the Southern Territory, bordering the Blood Sea and the Netherrealm, had always held an air of mystery. 14 years ago, when the first signs of unrest began to surface across the realm, forces from other provinces poured into Li province to seek refuge to avoid calamity, leading to numerous conflicts between martial mystic cultivators. During the intense clashes that unfolded over the next 6 months, not a single member of the Zhuli clan's younger generation remained capable. The first chiefs of all Zhuli tribes were defeated, and even the clan chiefs of the various Zhuli factions were humiliated in a series of duels in the Mengshan mountain range. Yang Shenjing, the Sui sect's top expert, defeated 6 of them in succession. The remaining 3 clan chiefs were defeated by the 3 supreme elders of the ancient Chen clan, a powerful clan with millions of members. The Zhuli clan's 3 generations, the old, the middle-aged, and the young, had grown increasingly decadent, losing all dignity. But that was only the beginning. More importantly, the battle at Mengshan Mountain had exposed the Zhuli clan's inherent weakness, shattering the ancient myriad clan title their ancestors had fought so hard to earn. Several portions of the Zhuli clan's core area, the Zhuli City Dao Domain, were seized to establish the Sui sect, the Sanchen 3 Chen Palace, the Tianyi Heavenly Unity sect, and the Guanai Coffin Seat Pavilion. The most powerful among them, the Sui sect, had been mere lackeys 1,000 years ago, tasked with transporting otherworld coffins for the Zhuli clan. Zhao Zhizhuo's spring and 5 seas were crippled 14 years ago during a fierce conflict by Yao Qian, the current chief of the Sui sect. In the carriage, Zhao Zhizhuo recounted the events of that year to Li Wei, sighing deeply. His heart felt crushed by a mountain. In truth, if the various Zhuli factions had been united, their combined strength would have surpassed the Sui sects. Outsiders wouldn't have found it so easy to crush us. The Sui sect only managed to subdue the middle-aged and old generations of the Zhu Li clan thanks to Yang Shenzheng and Yao Qian. 1,000 years ago, the supreme spiritual artifact symbolizing the Zhu Li leadership went missing. Afterward, no matter who became chief, the various factions refused to submit, engaging in constant infighting. Over time, the Zhu Li clan lost its leader, each faction governing itself. We have maintained a semblance of dignity for 1,000 years speaks to our deep foundation, our ability to withstand defeat. Li Wei, deeply fascinated by that turbulent era, asked, could someone truly subdue an entire generation in Li province with their own power? Zhao Zhizhuo nodded, a flood of unpleasant memories surfacing in his mind, especially the figure that had cast a shadow over his heart. Now you understand why the young clan leader's influence is so immense, don't you? Because the elders of the various Zhu Li factions see hope in him. If the younger generation of the Zhu Li clan had been strong enough back then, even if the older and middle generations had failed, the outside world would at least have praised the ancient myriad clans for their promising future, saying it was merely the previous two generations that hadn't been strong enough. Neither of them had the mood or inclination to linger in the West Market. After spending a fortune on spring liquid, they left the bustling market district and walked along Shenlong Divine Dragon Street, a dozen-feet-wide thoroughfare that bisected Zhu Li City from north to south. Li Wei planned to find an inn befitting a reclusive senior cultivator, then have Senior Coffin, who was residing within the evil Camel Bell, help Zhao Zhizhuo reshape his springs. He approached this matter with utmost caution, even going masked when purchasing the spring liquid. It feels like we're being followed. Li Wei had been vigilant against being tracked. Sensing something amiss, he glanced back. The carriage following them was pulled by a 5-meter-tall silver-horned elk. Its wheels and body were either gilded or cast entirely of gold, exuding an air of extreme wealth and splendor. The carriage curtains were made of white, sheer gauze, through which one could faintly make out the upright figure seated inside. Li Wei had just instructed Zhao Zhizhuo to pull over when the silver-horned elk carriage behind them clattered to a halt. The elk was exceptionally tall and majestic, making their own carriage horses look like mere donkeys by comparison. The aura emanating from the elk caused their horse to grow restless, trembling and prostrating themselves on the ground in fear. The golden carriage, carrying a faint fragrance, stopped beside Li Wei. The figure behind the white gauze peered at him through the fabric, a mocking smile playing on his lips. On the ship that day, I completely misjudged you. I thought you were just a lowly servant from the Kandli tribe. Who knew you were actually a martial mystic law expert who is strong enough to kill 2 Seven Springs martial mystic cultivators from the Chenggalan gang. It was Yang Yun. Yang Qingxi's younger brother, the Sui sect prodigy who had opened his 8th spring at the age of 17. Li Wei recognized his voice and replied calmly, I misjudged you too. On the ship that day, I thought young Master Yang was an innocent young man. Judging by your current demeanor, that doesn't seem to be the case. Yang Yun was annoyed by Li Wei's complete lack of fear despite their disparity in status and cultivation. I hear you possess more than one spiritual artifact, something I don't even have. On the ship, I gave you a Xuanhuan coin. How about you give me a spiritual artifact today? Li Wei said, I'm used to being poor, so I can't be as generous as young Master Yang. Since you're trying to impress 4th Miss Li, why don't you just buy one yourself? Yang Yun's voice carried a hint of disappointment. One shouldn't be too greedy. You must understand the principle of spending to avoid disaster. You just made a fortune of 100,000 silver coins from the Chenggalan gang, yet you're unwilling to part with a spiritual artifact. It seems today is destined to be marked by bloodshed. Ha ha ha. Let's go. Clatter. Clatter. The silver-horned elk carriage, pulled by the elk, moved forward without hesitation. Li Wei watched the golden carriage gleaming in the sunlight, a sense of unease creeping into his heart. Yang Yun wouldn't have come here just to say those words, there had to be more to it. Old Zhao, Li Wei asked, would the Yang clan dare to kill someone openly in the city? Zhao Zhizhuo looked concerned, it's hard to say. Since the Lingxiao Palace's recent setbacks in the war over the past 2 years, the various righteous armies have been steadily gaining ground. In Li province, the aristocratic clans and sects have grown increasingly dismissive of the prefectural governor's office and the city defense camp. Of course, the first commander just met with you yesterday. Given the Yang clan's ties to the Kandli tribe, young Master Yang shouldn't go too far. Otherwise, it would be a direct slap in the first commander's face. The Lingxiao Palace, the supreme authority of the Lingxiao realm's 28 provinces, held absolute power. Each province's governor was personally appointed by Yu Yaozi. At least, that was how it had been until now. Watch out. Li Wei's ears twitched, his expression changing drastically. He grabbed Zhao Zhizhuo's left shoulder, and the two of them rolled violently into the center of Shenlong Street. Almost simultaneously, from the rooftop on their right, a nearly 4-meter-tall giant ape aberrant, its back covered in silver fur, leapt down wielding a 2-meter-long iron rod as thick as a bull. The rod slammed into the spot where Li Wei and Zhao Zhizuo had been sitting just moments before, shattering it completely. Boom. The carriage's axle snapped, and the sturdy horses, startled by the impact, bolted away. The carriage body behind them was reduced to splinters. The iron rod was incredibly heavy, embedding itself deep into the shattered stone pavement. Li Wei realized that if he had reacted even a fraction of a second later, he and Zhao Zhizuo would have been crushed into a bloody pulp. Li Wei had only wanted to help his fellow Earthlings establish a peaceful life in this unfamiliar world and focus on cultivating the martial arts. He had never sought out trouble, nor did he desire conflict. But that moment had been too close, a near brush with death. He drew the yellow dragon sword from his back and glanced at the silver-horned elk carriage, now 100 paces away. The carriage had turned, facing Li Wei head-on, its occupants clearly preparing to watch the spectacle. Roar. The giant ape aberrant, its first strike missing, immediately raised its iron rod. With a single stride, it closed the distance and swung the rod down like a falling mountain. Li Wei had never faced such a terrifying opponent. The iron rod, though seemingly clumsy, moved with incredible agility in the aberrant's hands. This second strike was a masterpiece of brute force and skill, the wind it generated threatening to blow him away. Against previous opponents, Li Wei, even if outmatched in strength, would have found a way to evade. But this descending rod gave him the inescapable feeling of being trapped. He didn't know where to attack, nor where to retreat. His combat skills are far superior to mine. His mastery of the techniques approaches the Tao. The thought flashed through Li Wei's mind, then vanished, leaving him with no distractions. He swung his sword, clashing head-on with the iron rod. It felt like a mountain crushing him. Overwhelming force surged from the yellow dragon sword into his body. Boom. Li Wei was driven back dozens of paces, his knuckles cracked, his fingers struggling to hold onto the hilt. Old Zhao, you go first. Li Wei knew he couldn't match the giant ape aberrant's strength. He immediately mobilized his 5 springs, channeling a surge of spiritual power into his 60 veins, which then flowed into his right arm. The pain in his knuckles and fingers vanished, replaced by a surging, inexhaustible power. His fighting spirit ignited. Just before the giant ape aberrant attacked again, a layer of radiance bloomed on the yellow dragon sword's surface. Tai opens the sea. Without the slightest hesitation, Li Wei swung his sword. The sword chi tore through the air, leaving a permanent sword mark that seemed capable of cleaving the ocean itself. At least, that's what Li Wei believed in that moment. He had never reached such a peak mental state before. The terrifying force surged through him again, sending Li Wei stumbling back 3 steps. Yet the power of that single strike stunned everyone watching. It had cleaved the giant ape aberrant's iron rod, nearly as thick as a bowl, in 2. The lingering sword chi left a foot-long bloody gash across its chest, successfully paralyzing the creature, forcing it to retreat and not dare to advance another step. In the distance, within the silver-horned elk carriage. Is this his spiritual weapon? What a beautiful sword, such a sharp weapon. I wish it were mine. Yang Yun, dressed in a cloud brocade robe, sat on a seat lined with white fox fur. He was sharpening a 3-inch-long knife with a foot-long green whetstone. The blade had been polished to a mirror-like sheen, reflecting his face. But the small knife he had always treasured now seemed increasingly ordinary the more he looked at it. I don't even like it as much anymore. The tiger-like aberrant driving the carriage said, Young master, we're almost at the city defense camp. Then let's go. It's just a 7 Springs martial mystic cultivator, but he wields a spiritual artifact. That's a significant combat boost. We've already helped probe the situation, so the assassins from the 5 Burials Temple should have a good idea of what they're up against. Yang Yun returned the small knife to its hidden sheath in his boot and asked, Do you think we've shown the Candli tribe enough respect? The tiger-like aberrant replied, The silverback ape Yao Zhengsheng, who made the move, was hired through 7 Springs Hall. The actual killing was done by the 5 Burials Temple. We have nothing to do with it. Young master, you're overthinking this. Who's stronger, you or Yao Zhengsheng? Yang Yun asked. The tiger-like aberrant replied, In 7 Springs Hall, I'm ranked 72nd, and he's 82nd. We're both among the top 100 martial mystic cultivators in Li Province, pretty much evenly matched. Your application for a second 5C's pill has already been submitted. This time, don't disappoint my sister again. Yang Yun said. The tiger-like aberrant's eyes lit up with joy. After his first attempt to break through with the 5C's pill had failed, he had resigned himself to his fate. Who would have thought he'd get a second chance? Lu Shen will dedicate his life to serving the young mistress and young master. Blank. End of chapter. Novel. The Primordial Law. Volume 2, Julie Insect Valley. Chapter 2855 Harmonization with the Heavenly Laws. 28th of Volume 2. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. By the time the city defense camp arrived, the giant ape aberrant, nearly 4 meters tall, had already jumped into the river and disappeared. Li Wei didn't pursue, fearing for Zhao Zhizuo's safety at this critical moment. When he caught up, Zhao Zhijuo was on his way to the Kandli tribe for help. Zhao Zhijuo raged. The one who attacked was the silverback ape Yao Zhengsheng, a strong warrior who is among top 100 from the Seven Springs Hall of Lizhou, a contemporary of mine. Yang Yun and Yang Qingxi must have promised him the 5 C's pill to dare commit such a brazen murder in broad daylight. It's utter lawlessness. We must go to the first commander immediately. This is an insult to his authority. He won't stand for it. Li Wei pulled him back. Do you have any proof? Who can prove Yao Zhengsheng was hired by Yang Yun? Even if the first commander believes our assessment and suspects Yang Yun, what can he do without evidence? A senior going after a junior. Zhao Zhijuo quickly calmed down. Since Yang Yun has gone to such extreme lengths, he must have more plans. How about we seek out the young clan leader? He's the top young talent in Zhuli City. If he warns Yang Yun, it won't attract unnecessary gossip. Li Wei, too, felt a surge of pride. It's just Yang Yun, not Yang Qingxi. Besides, the young clan leader can only suppress Yang Yun's overt actions. How can he stop Yang Yun's underhanded schemes? Li Wei, too, possessed a certain pride. Yang Yun is just Yang Yun, not Yang Qingxi. Besides, even if the young clan leader can suppress Yang Yun openly, how can he stop Yang Yun's underhanded schemes? We shouldn't always resort to seeking help whenever trouble arises. In this world, we ultimately have to rely on ourselves. Old Zhao, where's the heroic spirit you once had? Has it all been worn away in these past dozen years? Zhao Zhijuo forced a bitter smile. When one grows old, their youthful vigor fades. I've long been brought to my knees. To speak of heroic spirit now would only invite ridicule. Tell me, what should we do next? First, we must see that senior. Helping you break through the spring and rebuild your cultivation is the most urgent matter. Li Wei strode forward, then paused as something occurred to him. Yang Yun owes me a carriage, a considerable sum. I've made a note of it. Zhao Zhijuo hurried after him, watching Li Wei's back. He couldn't help but admire the young man's composure and unwavering sharpness. Anyone else in their situation would have either fled to the Kandli tribe or already slunk out of the city in disgrace. The two men walked along the riverbank. As they walked, Li Wei asked, Old Zhao, what did you mean earlier by 7 Springs Hall and 100-strong warriors? Zhao Zhijuo explained, the 7 Springs Hall is a combat arena established by the prefectural governor's office. Any 7 Springs martial mystic cultivator can go there to make a name for themselves. You should know that once a martial mystic cultivator opens the 100 wisdoms at the top of the 7th spring, they can choose to attempt the 5 C's realm. Once they break through, they become highly sought after by any faction. However, 8 or 9 out of 10 fail this hurdle. Countless 7 Springs martial mystic cultivators in Li province are trapped below the 5 C's realm, some even reduced to serving as household servants for great clans. Li Wei recalled a passage from the 9 Springs Compendium. With superior talent, 20 years of diligent cultivation offers hope of reaching the 7th spring. In other words, a martial mystic cultivator with superior talent might open the 7th spring in their 20s. Yet, in the eyes of the strong myriad factions and sects, superior talent is merely the minimum requirement for cultivation. And what of the far more numerous martial mystic cultivators with average talent? Many of them spend decades striving to reach the 7th spring. Zhao Zhijuo explained, the prefectural governor's office established the 7 Springs Hall to identify the most powerful 7 Springs martial mystic cultivators. Lingxiao Palace would then bestow 5 C's pills upon them. Naturally, this drove 7 Springs martial mystic cultivators across the land into a frenzy, as it offered them a chance to advance to the 5 C's realm. At its peak, anyone who ranked among the top 100 in a state's 7 Springs Hall would receive a 5 C's pill. The term, 100-strong warriors emerged during that time, representing both glory and the opportunity to break through to the 5 C's realm. 10 years ago. Or rather, 3 years before that, after the Lingxiao Palace issued the Shoutian decree, the 5 C's pill became much harder to obtain. When war erupted and the world rose up against the Lingxiao Palace, the 5 C's pill was completely cut off. But the 7 Springs Hall still served a purpose. It offered a small measure of satisfaction to martial mystic cultivators who couldn't advance to the 5 C's realm. Moreover, major powers would select 100-strong warriors and bestow them with 5 C's pills to recruit them into their service. The path to advancement remained open, but it had narrowed considerably. Yet the 5 C's pills are so precious that even the major powers couldn't get enough for themselves. What price would you have to pay to acquire one? Zhao Zhijuo continued, these old 7 Springs martial mystic cultivators, though unable to break through, spent decades honing their techniques to near perfection. Every one of the 100-strong warriors is extraordinary. At the same level, even those young pure immortal physiques might not be their match. I've heard that some of the top-ranked 100-strong warriors have even defeated 5 C's realm cultivators. Of course, that wouldn't have been at the 7 Springs level. 8th spring is the most likely explanation. After all, there are always a few in every province who open their 8th spring but can't break through to the 5 C's realm, even with the 5 C's pill. That silverback ape Yao Zhengsheng is naturally gifted with immense strength. His physique is far larger than other aberrant humanoids. 10 years ago, he already mastered the mountain-splitting staff technique to the Law Convergence realm, Dharma Hegemony realm, yet he still ranked only near the bottom of the 100-strong warriors. He's already in his 50s. If he doesn't push himself now, he'll lose his chance forever. Li Wei asked, what exactly is the Law Convergence realm? Heavenly Dao Law Convergence. Zhao Zhizuo explained, it means cultivating a technique to the point where it can resonate with certain subtle laws of the universe. Of course, this resonance is only a slight connection. But it's still an extraordinary feat, requiring years of relentless practice. Only a handful of martial mystic cultivators in the 5 Seas realm ever achieve it. Fortunately, you have a spiritual artifact to break through his mountain-splitting staff technique. Otherwise, you'd be in grave danger today. Whenever Li Wei recalled Yao Zhengsheng's inescapable staff strike, he was awestruck. It seemed he needed to learn more about Heavenly Dao Law Convergence and strive to master such a technique himself. He had felt a similar sensation when he unleashed Tai Opens the Sea in the face of danger earlier. Unfortunately, that feeling couldn't be sustained. Li Wei led Zhao Zhizuo on a long detour, even changing clothes to ensure they weren't being followed, before finally settling on a modest inn. Great masters and senior cultivators didn't necessarily reside in luxurious accommodations. A more ordinary inn might be more suitable. Most importantly, the rooms were cheap. With the inn still 100 paces away, Li Wei stopped and said, Old Zhao, you've probably already figured out that while we're outsiders, our identities aren't simple. Zhao Zhizuo had long suspected as much. After all, someone of humble origins wouldn't possess spiritual artifacts or be able to transform 2 companions into pure immortal physique. He even speculated that Li Wei and his group weren't from the Lingxiao realm but perhaps a rare clan from some mysterious secret realm. Li Wei began the story he'd prepared long ago. That senior cultivator is also from our world, but he's suffering from a physical ailment and is currently recuperating in Zhuli City. I only recently reconnected with him. Strictly speaking, I shouldn't have brought you here. If word of this were to leak. Zhao Zhizuo quickly interjected, I understand the rules. I swear by the Zhuli gods that if I reveal a single word of this to anyone, may I lose everything I hold dear in this life, including my life itself. Then I'll go report your arrival first. Wait for me here. For safety's sake, Li Wei gritted his teeth and spent 200 silver to secure a month's long-term room rental. After removing the stone coffin from the evil camel bell and arranging the room, he went to fetch Zhao Zhizuo. Knock, knock. Li Wei knocked on the door and asked, Senior, my friend has arrived. May we come in? Senior Coffin's voice replied, come in. The two pushed open the door and entered. The room was thick with nether mist, so dark that nothing could be seen. It was Senior Coffin who had activated the ghost banner, clearly not wanting Zhao Zhizuo to know he was merely a corpse. Zhao Zhizuo was so nervous he didn't know what to do with his hands and feet. This moment had finally arrived, yet he still felt utterly uncertain. After all, reforming a spring was as difficult as climbing to the heavens. What if the spiritual artifact Senior Coffin possessed wasn't powerful enough? What if his spring had been damaged for too long? What if there were too many what ifs? Young man Zhao, come here, Senior Coffin said. Li Wei's keen senses, though unable to see, immediately realized Senior Coffin was sitting on the bed. His scalp tingled, and his mind conjured the image of a corpse sitting there. Senior Coffin helped Zhao Zhizuo refine the spring liquid and reform his spring, but he didn't use the evil camel bell. Instead, he used his own 9 sovereigns banner. This further confirmed Li Wei's suspicions. Half an hour after the assassination attempt on Shenlong Street, news reached the Kandli tribe's tribal academy in Zhuli City. The headmaster had already returned to Ancestral Mountain due to the incident involving the Snow Wolf King's teeth. Now, Li Songolin was in charge of the academy. When Li Songolin, the first commander of the Kandli Armor Division, learned of the attack, all traces of his usual laziness vanished, replaced by the sharp focus of a drawn sword. How dare they? What's the condition of the victim? The messenger recounted the details of the assassination attempt. Silverback ape Yao Zhengsheng has some skill, Li Songolin remarked. To be able to withstand his attack, even with the aid of a spiritual artifact, is still quite impressive. The messenger added, witnesses claim that his broken staff sword strike already showed hints of Heavenly Dao Law convergence. That's unexpected. How old is he? Li Songolin's interest was piqued, and an idea began to form in his mind. Since he also practiced swordsmanship, he asked, did they go to the Kandli clan manor or the Zhu Li Dao Academy to find the fourth miss? The messenger shook his head. They didn't go to the young clan leader or seek out the fourth miss at the Zhu Li Dao Academy. It seems they intend to handle this themselves. He's got some backbone, I'll give him that. Li Songolin chuckled, but his expression quickly turned cold. I won't interfere in matters concerning the younger generation. Tell Kang Li that he's responsible for this. If he can't even handle a Yang Qingxi, his title as the Zhu Li clan's first heir will ring hollow, and no one will truly take him seriously. Also, deliver a message to the Yang clan. If anything goes wrong with the people in that mansion within a month, I'll sweep through every Yang clan gang in Zhu Li City. Don't blame me for not showing mercy then. The messenger asked, and what about after a month? Li Songolin smiled. I wanted to send that kid to the Zhu Li Dao Academy. Once he's in the Dao Academy, he'll be much safer. But he's been hesitating, afraid of this and that, unable to make up his mind. I'm just giving him a little push. A month should be enough time for him to think things through. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.